The Deep Space Monitoring Station orbited Kepler 442b like a metal moon, its massive sensors always listening to the void. Inside the station, Dae-ho Kim sat at his workstation, translating alien languages that most humans had never heard of. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he barely noticed. This was his life now, decoding messages from civilizations that wanted nothing to do with Earth. Soo-jin Park walked into the communications center, her face pale with worry. She had been working the night shift when something strange happened. All the normal chatter from nearby star systems had suddenly stopped. The silence was complete and terrifying. "Dae-ho!" she called out, her voice shaking slightly. "I need you to look at this message. It came in 20 minutes ago on an emergency frequency." Dae-ho turned around in his chair. Soo-jin was one of the best communication officers on the station. If she was worried, then something was very wrong. He followed her to the main console where a strange symbol pulsed on the screen. "It's encrypted," Soo-jin explained, "but it's not like any code I've seen before. The signal is incredibly powerful, like someone used every bit of energy they had left to send it." Dae-ho studied the symbol carefully. After years of working with alien languages, he had developed a good eye for patterns. This symbol looked familiar, but he couldn't place it. He started running the message through his translation programs. "Wait," he said suddenly. "This is Veltari script, but that's impossible." Soo-jin frowned. "Why is it impossible?" "The Veltari are one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. They have the strongest military, the best technology, and they control dozens of star systems. They would never send a distress signal like this." The translation program finished its work, and both humans stared at the screen in shock. The message was short but filled with terror. "This is Ambassador Quindar of the Veltari Coalition. Our worlds are burning. The harvesters have returned. They consume everything. Billions are dead. We have contacted every allied species. No one will help us. They are all afraid or already gone. In our final hour, we break the ancient law. We send this message to the Sol system, to the humans, to the Deathworlders. If you can hear this, please help us. We know your species was quarantined for good reasons. We know the galaxy fears you, but we are dying, and you are our last hope." Dae-ho and Soo-jin sat in silence for a long moment. The quarantine of Earth was something every human knew about. For 50 years, humanity had been forbidden from leaving their home system. The Galactic Council had decided that humans were too dangerous to be allowed to spread across the galaxy. "The Harvesters," Soo-jin whispered. "I've heard that name before. Aren't they just a legend?" Dae-ho was already pulling up old records on his computer. "Not a legend. Ancient records talk about machine intelligences that destroyed entire civilizations millions of years ago. But everyone thought they were gone, forever." The communication console started beeping frantically. More messages were coming in, but these were different. They were automatic signals from deep space monitoring buoys, the kind that only activated when something terrible happened. Soo-jin's hands flew over the controls as she decoded the new signals. Her face went white as she read them. "Dae-ho, look at this. 3 Veltari star systems have gone completely dark in the last 6 hours. No radio signals, no light from their suns, nothing." "That's impossible," Dae-ho said. But even as he spoke, he knew it wasn't. The evidence was right there on the screen. More messages started coming in. Not from the Veltari, but from other species. The Cordon Collective, the Zephyrian Republic, the hegemony of Tau Ceti. All of them were sending the same type of desperate signals. The harvesters were spreading across the galaxy like a plague, consuming everything in their path. "We need to contact Earth immediately," Sujin said. But her voice had no hope in it. "Not that it will matter. We're quarantined, remember? Earth Command won't risk breaking the treaty just to help aliens who never wanted our help before." Daeho was about to agree when another message came through. This one was different. It was personal, meant for him specifically. He recognized the transmission code. It was from his old colleague, Dr. Yon-Sik Han, who worked at the Xenobiology Department on Earth. The message was simple. "We've been monitoring the situation. Pack your things. Transport leaves in 4 hours. The Admiral wants to see you." "What Admiral?" Sujin asked, reading over his shoulder. Daeho smiled for the first time in hours. "I think I know, but I didn't think she was still in service." He pulled up classified files that most people on the station didn't have access to. There, in the deepest levels of Earth's military structure, was a name that made Sujin gasp. "Admiral Ji-Woo Lee, Commander of Deep Space Operations." "But that division doesn't exist," Sujin protested. "Earth doesn't have deep space operations. We're quarantined." "Officially, you're right," Daeho said quietly. "But what if I told you that for the last 50 years, while the galaxy kept us locked in our own system, Earth has been building something? What if the quarantine wasn't a punishment, but a chance to prepare?" The communication console beeped again. This time it was a direct message from Earth Command, addressed to everyone on the station. "All personnel with xenolinguistic or diplomatic experience report for immediate transport to Earth. This is not a drill. The quarantine protocols have been suspended under Emergency Authority Zulu 7. Sujin looked at Daeho with wide eyes. "Emergency Authority Zulu 7? What does that mean?" "It means," Daeho said, standing up and grabbing his personal belongings, "that the galaxy is about to find out why they were so afraid of humans in the first place." As they prepared to leave the station, more desperate messages kept coming in from across the galaxy. Entire civilizations were crying out for help, but there was no one left to answer. The great powers of the galaxy were either dead, dying, or too frightened to fight. Everyone except the species they had locked away in the Sol system. The species they called monsters. The Deathworlders. Sujin packed her things quickly, her mind racing with possibilities. "Do you really think we can help them? The harvesters destroyed civilizations that were much more advanced than us." Daeho paused at the door of the communication center and looked back at the screens, showing the galaxy's desperate pleas for help. "Sujin, there's something you need to understand about humans. We didn't get quarantined because we were weak. We got quarantined because when we see innocent people in danger, we don't calculate the odds. We don't worry about the cost. We just fight." He smiled grimly. "And I have a feeling the galaxy is about to remember why that scared them so much." As their transport ship prepared to leave for Earth, the last message from Ambassador Quindar played on repeat in the empty communication center. "Please help us. You are our last hope." The transport ship carrying Daeho and Sujin docked at a space station that officially didn't exist. Hidden behind Earth's moon, the massive structure was bigger than any city either of them had ever seen. Ships moved in and out of the docking, bays with military precision. But these weren't the small patrol vessels that Earth was supposed to have. These were warships, huge and deadly, painted in colors that seemed to absorb light. "Welcome to Firebase Alpha," said the officer who met them at the airlock. Her uniform was black with silver markings that neither Daeho nor Sujin recognized. "I'm Commander Bo Kyung Yu." The Admiral is waiting for you in the briefing room. As they walked through the station's corridors, Deho couldn't help but stare. Everything was built for function, not comfort. The walls were thick metal, designed to stop weapons that could cut through normal ship hulls. Soldiers in powered armor moved past them, their equipment looking more advanced than anything the public knew Earth possessed. "How long has this been?" "Here?" Sujin whispered. Commander Yu heard her. "Construction started the day after the quarantine was announced. The Admiral believed we would need it someday." The briefing room was enormous, with screens covering every wall. In the center sat a holographic display showing the entire galaxy. Red zones marked areas where harvester attacks had been reported. The red was spreading fast. Admiral Jiwoo Lee stood with her back to them, studying the display. She was smaller than Deho had expected, but when she turned around, her eyes held the kind of authority that made generals nervous. Her hair was silver now, but her posture was still that of someone who had never backed down from a fight. "Mr. Kim, Ms. Park," she said formally. "Thank you for coming. I know you have questions, but let me start with what you need to know." She gestured to the holographic display. "The Veltari coalition is gone. 3 billion people dead in the last 12 hours. The Cordon Collective fell 4 hours ago. The Zephyrian Republic has evacuated their homeworlds, but they won't survive much longer." General Tae-min Choi, a massive man with scars covering his face, stepped forward. "The harvesters aren't just destroying civilizations, they're learning from them. Every species they consume makes them stronger and smarter." Dr. Haiwan Song, Earth's leading expert on alien biology, activated another display. "We've been studying the harvesters for decades, using the limited information available. They're not just machines. They're a combination of technology and biology, capable of adapting to any threat." Sujin found her voice. "But why are you telling us this? We're just translators and communication officers." Admiral Lee smiled coldly. "Because the galaxy is about to learn that humans don't stay quarantined when innocent people are dying. And we're going to need people who understand alien cultures to coordinate with the survivors." She pressed a button, and the entire wall behind her became transparent. Through it, they could see a construction bay that stretched for kilometers. Inside, hundreds of ships were being prepared for launch. But these weren't ordinary ships. They looked alive, their hulls moving and shifting like living skin. "For 50 years, Admiral Lee continued, the galaxy has told us we're too dangerous to be trusted. They said we were monsters from a death world, too violent and unpredictable to be allowed to spread among civilized species." Captain Dong-hyun, Nam, a young pilot with incredibly steady hands, joined the group. His flight suit bore patches from missions that officially never happened. "They were right to be afraid," he said quietly, "but not for the reasons they thought." Dr. Song activated another display showing human military capabilities. While the galaxy focused on technology and diplomacy, we focused on survival. Our ships can repair themselves in battle. Our weapons adapt to enemy defenses. Our soldiers are enhanced with biotechnology that would terrify most species. But most importantly, General Choi added, we fight for principles that the galaxy forgot. We don't calculate acceptable losses when innocent lives are at stake. We don't negotiate with genocidal machines. We just fight until we win or die trying. Admiral Lee walked over to a secure communication console. "I've been in contact with what's left of the Galactic Council. They've officially requested our assistance, which means the quarantine is temporarily suspended." She activated the console, and the desperate voice of Veltari Ambassador Quindar filled the room. But this wasn't the message they had received. Earlier, this was new, transmitted just hours ago. To the humans of Earth, the alien voice said, weak with pain and exhaustion. We know we have no right to ask for your help. We know our people were among those who voted to quarantine your species. But our children are dying. Our worlds are burning. If there is any mercy in your hearts, please help us. The message ended, and the room fell silent. Finally, Admiral Lee spoke. The galaxy quarantined us because they thought we were monsters. They were terrified of what might happen if we were allowed to spread among the stars. She turned to face the enormous fleet visible through the transparent wall. They were right to be terrified, but not because we would hurt innocent people. She pressed another button, and every screen in the room showed the same image. The Earth Defense Fleet, thousands of ships ready for battle. They should have been terrified because when we see innocent people suffering, we don't calculate the odds. We don't worry about treaties or politics or acceptable losses. We gather every weapon we have, and we go to war. General Choi stepped forward. The Harvesters have consumed dozens of advanced civilizations. They've adapted to every military strategy the galaxy could throw at them. But they've never faced humans in battle. And that, Captain Nam added with a grim smile, is going to be their biggest mistake. Dr. Song activated a final display showing the galaxy's current situation. Our intelligence suggests that the Harvesters will reach the core worlds within 72 hours. The Galactic Council is evacuating to emergency bunkers, hoping to wait out the storm. Admiral Lee looked directly at Daeho and Su-Jin. We're not going to wait in bunkers. We're going to meet them head-on. And we're going to stop them. But we'll need translators and cultural experts to coordinate with alien survivors. Su-Jin stepped forward. Admiral, with respect, how can we possibly win against something that destroyed civilizations more advanced than ours? The Admiral's smile was the kind that made enemies surrender without fighting. Miss Park, there's something you need to understand about advanced civilizations. They became advanced by being smart, by avoiding unnecessary risks, by calculating the odds before taking action. She gestured toward the fleet of living warships. Humans became advanced by surviving on a world that tried to kill us every single day. We learned to fight impossible odds and win. We learned that sometimes the only way to survive is to be more dangerous than everything that wants to destroy you. General Choi activated the shipyard's communication system. Throughout the massive station, alarms began to sound. All hands, to battle stations. Fleet preparation complete. Launch in T-6 hours. As soldiers and technicians ran to their positions, Admiral Lee turned back to the galaxy display. The red zones had grown larger in just the time they had been talking. The galaxy is about to learn why they quarantined us, she said quietly. And the Harvesters are about to learn why that was the smartest thing the galaxy ever did. Captain, Nam saluted the Admiral. Ma'am, the Inchin's Fury is ready for launch. All experimental systems are online. Good, Admiral Lee replied, because we're about to field test technology that will either save the galaxy or teach the Harvesters what real monsters look like. As the massive fleet prepared to leave Earth space for the first time in 50 years, one thing was clear. The quarantine hadn't made humans weaker. It had given them time to become something the galaxy had never seen before. Protectors with the power to back up their principles. Commander Bo-Ra Yun walked through the weapons testing facility deep inside Firebase Alpha, her footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. Around her, human engineering teams worked on devices that looked more grown than built, The technology was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, and there was a good reason for that. It had been designed by a species that learned to fight by surviving the most dangerous planet in known space. The harvesters adapt to conventional weapons, she explained to Lieutenant Wu Jin Seo, who was reviewing tactical systems on his portable display. Every civilization they've faced used energy weapons, projectile weapons, or explosive devices. The harvesters learned to defend against these within minutes of first contact. Lieutenant Seo nodded as he watched a human warship's hull ripple like living skin. So we built weapons that don't just destroy, they evolve during combat? Exactly, Commander Yun confirmed. Earth's weapons are based on biological principles. They adapt faster than the enemy can respond because they're designed to survive, not just attack. She led him to a viewing window where they could see the interior of the battleship Soul's Pride. The ship's corridors moved like arteries, pumping nutrients and repair materials to damaged sections. The walls themselves were alive, capable of healing wounds that would cripple conventional vessels. The galaxy thinks our ships are horrifying, Commander Yoon said with pride. They're right, but they're horrifying to our enemies, not to us. In another section of the facility, Master Sergeant Yoon Ji Han was conducting final training exercises with her enhanced Marine units. These weren't ordinary soldiers. Each Marine had undergone genetic modifications that would terrify most alien species, enhanced reflexes, improved healing, and the ability to survive in environments that would kill normal humans. Listen up, Sergeant Han told her squad of 20 Marines. The harvesters process biological material into raw resources. They expect living beings to be weak, soft, easy to consume. They've never encountered humans who chose to become something more than baseline biology. Private Kyung-ho Park raised his hand. His arm was covered in what looked like living armor that had grown from his own enhanced skin. Sergeant, what if the harvesters try to assimilate our technology like they did? With other species? Sergeant Han smiled grimly. That's the beauty of our approach, Park. Every piece of human military technology requires a living human to operate it properly. The ships need human neural patterns to function. The weapons need human creativity to adapt. The harvesters can try to copy our technology, but they can't copy 50,000 years of human survival instincts. She activated a holographic display showing harvester combat data. Look at how they fought other species. Clean, efficient, mechanical. They overwhelm. With superior numbers and firepower, then process the survivors. The display changed to show theoretical human combat scenarios. Now look at how we're going to fight them. Chaotic, unpredictable, adaptive. We're going to hit them in ways they can't calculate or prepare for. Back in the weapons facility, Commander Yun was showing Lieutenant Seo the most classified project of all, the Fury-class assault ships. These vessels were small but incredibly deadly, designed to be piloted by humans with enhanced neural interfaces. Captain Dong-hyun Nam will be piloting the first Fury-class ship into battle, she explained. The Incheon's Fury is more than a warship. It's an extension of Captain Nam's own mind and body. Lieutenant Seo studied the technical specifications with amazement. The ship responds to his thoughts? That's impossible. Not impossible, Commander Yun corrected. Just incredibly dangerous. The neural interface technology killed 12 test pilots before we perfected it. But now we have pilots who can think and react at the speed of computer processors while maintaining human intuition and creativity. She activated a demonstration, and they watched as Captain Nam's ship moved through a complex obstacle course. The vessel flowed like liquid metal, changing shape to slip through gaps that seemed too small. then expanding to avoid obstacles that appeared without warning. The harvesters calculate probable enemy actions based on physics and logic, Commander, Yun explained. They can't calculate what humans will do, because we don't always follow physics and logic. Sometimes we do things that should be impossible, because we refuse to accept that they're impossible. In the Marine training facility, Sergeant Han was explaining the most important aspect of human military doctrine to her enhanced soldiers. The galaxy thinks we're monsters because we come from a death world, she said. They're not wrong. Earth taught us that everything in the universe is trying to kill you, so you'd better be ready to kill it first. She gestured to the holographic display showing peaceful alien worlds. But look at what we're really fighting for. We're not fighting to conquer or to prove we're stronger. We're fighting because when we see children in danger, when we see innocent people being murdered, something in our death world DNA says, "Not on my watch." Private Sora Kim, her body enhanced with technology that let her survive in hard vacuum, spoke up. But Sergeant, why should we risk our lives for aliens who are afraid of us? Because, Sergeant Han replied, that's what separates us from the harvesters. They consume because they can. We protect because we choose to. The galaxy was right. To be afraid of us. We are the most dangerous species they've ever encountered. But they were wrong about why we're dangerous. She activated combat footage from human military exercises. The soldiers moved with inhuman speed and coordination, their enhanced bodies performing feats that would be impossible for baseline humans. We're not dangerous because we want to hurt people, she continued. We're dangerous because we'll do whatever it takes to protect the innocent, no matter the cost to ourselves. Back in the command center, Admiral Lee was reviewing final preparations with her senior staff. Dr. Haiwan Song had completed her analysis of harvester biology, and the results were both fascinating and terrifying. They're not just machines, Dr. Song reported. They're a hybrid of biological and technological components, capable of rapid evolution. But they have a weakness. They're based on consumption and assimilation. They've never encountered a species that fights back by becoming more dangerous in response to threats. General Choi nodded grimly. So when they try to consume human technology, what will happen? Our technology will fight back, Dr. Song replied. Human military biotechnology is designed to resist assimilation. If the harvesters try to process our ships or weapons, they'll find that Earth technology doesn't just defend itself. It attacks anything that tries to consume it. Admiral Lee stood before the main display showing the human fleet. Thousands of ships waited in formation, their living hulls pulsing with energy. Each vessel was unique, adapted for specific combat roles, but all of them shared the same terrifying characteristic. They had been designed by humans who refused to lose. The galaxy quarantined us because they thought we would spread like a plague, Admiral Lee said to her assembled officers. They were right. But what we spread isn't conquest or destruction. What we spread is the idea that innocent people deserve protection, no matter the cost. She activated the fleet-wide communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Lee. In 6 hours, we will break quarantine for the first time in 50 years. We go not as conquerors, but as protectors. The galaxy fears us because we come from a death world. Let's show them that deathworlders make the best guardians. Commander Yoon looked out at the assembled fleet and smiled. Each ship was a masterpiece of human engineering, beautiful, terrifying, and absolutely unstoppable. Admiral, the harvesters have never faced anything like us before. No, Admiral Lee agreed, and after today, They never will again. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of what had once been Veltari space. Captain So-Young Kim stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel Harmony's Edge, staring at the screens in horror. Where there should have been thriving worlds and busy shipping lanes, there was only darkness and debris. "Scanning now," reported Commander Junseo Park from his position at the sensor station. "I'm detecting—" "Admiral, you need to see this." Admiral Lee's face appeared on the communication screen from the flagship. Her expression was grim as she reviewed the sensor data. 3 star systems completely stripped. Not just the planets. They've harvested the asteroids, the moons, even the space stations. Captain Kim felt sick as she watched the readings. Entire civilizations had been reduced to raw materials in just days. "Are there any survivors?" "Picking up weak signals from the 4th planet in the Zeta system," Commander Park reported. "It looks like... Yes, there are Veltari ships hiding in the asteroid field." The human fleet moved carefully through the debris field that had once been a peaceful solar system. As they approached the source of the signals, they could see the Veltari survivors, perhaps 50 ships, all that remained of a civilization that had numbered in the billions. "This is Captain So-Young Kim of the Earth vessel Harmony's Edge," she broadcast on standard diplomatic frequencies. "We received your distress call. We're here to help." The response was immediate but filled with disbelief. "Earth vessels? But you're quarantined. You're not supposed to leave your system." "The quarantine has been suspended," Captain Kim replied calmly. "We'd like to speak with your fleet commander." After several minutes of confused chatter in the Veltari language, a new voice came over the communication system. It was weak and filled with exhaustion, but carried the authority of command. "This is Fleet Commander Zilneth, of what remains of the Veltari Coalition Defense Force. I cannot believe you came. After everything our people said about yours, after the way we treated you." Her voice broke, and Captain Kim could hear the sound of quiet weeping through the communication link. "Commander Zilneth," Captain Kim said gently, "right now the past doesn't matter. What matters is helping your people and stopping the harvesters. May we come aboard your ship?" An hour later, Captain Kim and Commander Park were sitting in the command center of the Veltari flagship. The alien ship was nothing like human vessels. Everything was curved and organic-looking, designed for comfort rather than combat. It would have been beautiful under normal circumstances, but now it was crowded with refugees and filled with the smell of fear. Fleet Commander Zilneth was smaller than Captain Kim had expected, with pale blue skin and large, intelligent eyes. That held too much pain. Her uniform was torn and stained, and she moved like someone who hadn't slept in days. "I keep expecting to wake up from this nightmare," Commander Zilneth said quietly. 3 days ago, we had 12 billion people living across 47 worlds. Now we have maybe 2 million survivors, and they're scattered across the galaxy." Commander Park was studying the tactical displays, trying to understand how the harvesters operated. "How did they move so fast? Our intelligence suggested they would take weeks to consume a star system." Veltari scientist Moradun, an elderly alien with deep knowledge of ancient history, activated a holographic display. "The harvesters we're facing now are not the same ones that attacked the galaxy millions of years ago. They've been learning, evolving, growing stronger with each civilization they consume." The display showed the progression of the attack. "They arrived at our border world simultaneously as if they had been coordinating for months, but that should be impossible. They're machines, not strategists. Captain Kim studied the patterns carefully. No, they're not just machines anymore. They're something else, something that learned strategy from every species they've consumed. She activated her portable communication device. Admiral Lee, we need to talk. The harvesters aren't what we expected. Admiral Lee's image appeared on the screen. Behind her, they could see the bridge of the flagship, with human officers working at stations that seemed to be alive. Report, Captain, the Admiral ordered. Sir, the harvesters aren't just consuming technology and resources. They're consuming knowledge, experience, even military strategies. Every civilization they destroy makes them smarter and more dangerous. Fleet Commander Zilnith stepped forward, her voice filled with desperate hope. Admiral Lee, I have to ask, why did you come? Your people owe us nothing. We were among those who voted to quarantine humanity. We called you monsters and deathworlders. Admiral, Lee was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was steady and sure. Commander Zilnith, there's something you need to understand about humans. We don't help people because they deserve it, or because they've been kind to us. We help people because it's the right thing to do. The Veltari commander's eyes filled with tears. But we treated your species so badly, and now you're paying. The price for the galaxy's mistake, Admiral Lee replied. But that doesn't mean we'll let innocent people die. That's not who we are. Commander Park had been working with Veltari technicians to analyze the harvester attack patterns. Admiral, I think I understand how they operate now. They don't just attack randomly. They target civilizations based on their military capabilities and technological advancement. Scientist Mordun nodded sadly. They attacked us first because we had the strongest military in this sector. They consumed our knowledge and our technology, then used it to attack the next target more efficiently. Captain Kim felt a chill as she realized the implications. Which means they now have access to the military secrets of every advanced civilization in the galaxy. Except ours, Admiral Lee pointed out. They've never encountered human military technology because we've been quarantined for 50 years. Fleet Commander Zilnith looked up with sudden hope. Then you might actually have a chance against them? More than a chance, Admiral Lee said with confidence. They've optimized their strategies to fight civilizations that value efficiency and minimize casualties. They've never fought a species that embraces chaos and refuses to give up. She gestured to someone off-screen, and Captain Dong-Hyun Nam appeared on the display. His ship, the Incheon's Fury, was visible through the viewports behind him. A sleek vessel that seemed to shift and change shape as they watched. Captain Nam will be leading our first strike against the harvesters, Admiral Lee explained. His ship is equipped with experimental technology that adapts in real time to enemy tactics. Commander Zilnith stared at the human warship in amazement. Your ship? It's alive? Captain Nam smiled. In a way, yes. Human military technology is based on biological principles. Our ships heal themselves, our weapons evolve during combat, and our tactics adapt faster than any computer can calculate. But, more importantly, Admiral Lee added, we fight for something the harvesters don't understand. We fight for each other. Every human in this fleet is here by choice, not because they were programmed or forced. Scientist Morden activated another display showing the galaxy-wide situation. The harvesters are moving toward the core worlds now. They'll reach the Galactic Council chambers within 48 hours. Then we'd better get moving, Admiral Lee said. Commander Zilnith, would you be willing to serve as our liaison with other survivor groups? We'll need to coordinate with anyone still fighting. The Veltari commander straightened her shoulders, and for the first time since the humans had arrived, She looked like a military officer again. "Admiral, it would be an honor, but I have to warn you, most of the galaxy still believes humans are too dangerous to trust." Admiral Lee's smile was cold and determined. "Commander, they're about to learn that we're exactly as dangerous as they always feared. The difference is, we're dangerous to their enemies, not to them." As the combined human and Veltari forces prepared to move deeper into Harvester territory, Captain Kim couldn't help but notice the change in the alien survivors. For the first time in days, they had hope. Admiral Seung-Ho Kang stood in the tactical command center of the battleship Iron Mountain, watching as the first Harvester fleet approached. The enemy ships were massive geometric constructs, each one the size of a small moon. They moved in perfect formation, their dark hulls absorbing light like black holes. "Contact in 15 minutes, reported his tactical officer. "Enemy fleet consists of 47 capital ships and approximately 300 smaller vessels." Through the communication link, Fleet Commander Zilneth's voice was tight with fear. "Admiral Kang, those are the same ships that destroyed our home fleet. Each capital ship carries enough firepower to crack a planet." Admiral Kang studied the approaching enemy with the calm expression of someone who had spent his entire career preparing for this moment. "Commander Zilneth, how did your fleet engage them previously?" "Standard formation attack," the Veltari officer replied. "We approached at maximum range, concentrated our firepower on their largest ships, and attempted to break their formation." "And they adapted to your tactics?" "Within minutes. They changed their formation, redistributed their shields, and began targeting our command ships specifically. It was like fighting an enemy that could read our minds." Admiral Kang nodded thoughtfully. "That's their strength and their weakness. They adapt to logical tactics because they process information like computers, but humans don't always fight logically." He activated the fleet communication system. "All ships, this is Admiral Kang. Initiate Protocol Chaos 7. Captain Nam, you are cleared for independent action. Captain John, take your fighter squadrons and show them what human pilots can do." Captain Mi-Young-John's voice crackled over the radio from her fighter cockpit. "Copy that, Admiral. Red Squadron, follow. My lead. We're going to dance with these metal monsters." The human fleet scattered in all directions, abandoning any recognizable formation. To the Harvesters, who had fought dozens of civilizations, this looked like panic. Their targeting systems locked onto what appeared to be fleeing ships. That was their first mistake. Captain Dong-Hyun Nam's ship, the Incheon's Fury, dove straight toward the largest Harvester vessel. His neural interface allowed him to pilot the ship as if it were his own body, rolling and spinning through defensive fire that should have been impossible to avoid. "Fury to command," he reported calmly as energy beams passed inches from his hull, beginning attack run on the primary target. The Harvester ship began targeting him with every weapon it had, but Captain Nam's vessel moved like a living thing, flowing around obstacles and through gaps that kept appearing and disappearing in the defensive fire. Dr. Kyung-Suk Im, monitoring the battle from the command ship, watched in amazement as her AI warfare systems engaged the enemy. "Admiral, their computers are trying to hack our systems, but they can't penetrate our firewalls. That's because our AI systems aren't just programmed," Admiral Kong explained to the confused Veltari observers. "They're based on human neural patterns. You can't hack intuition and creativity." Meanwhile, Captain John's fighter squadrons were performing maneuvers that violated several laws of physics. The small ships moved in seemingly random patterns, but there was a method to the madness that the Harvesters couldn't calculate. Red leader to all squadrons, Captain John called out as she led her fighters in a spiral pattern around a harvester, capital ship. Remember, these things expect us to act like machines. Let's show them what chaos looks like. The fighters began what could only be described as a three-dimensional dance around the enemy ships. They moved in patterns that were beautiful, deadly, and completely unpredictable. The harvester targeting systems couldn't lock onto ships that seemed to move based on instinct rather than logic. Colonel Chang Min-oh, leading a boarding action against a disabled harvester vessel, reported in from inside the enemy ship. Command, these things are unlike anything we've seen. The interior is part machine, part biological, and part something else entirely. His enhanced Marines moved through corridors that shifted and changed around them, but they adapted faster than the ship could modify its defenses. The ship is trying to process our equipment, Colonel O continued. But our gear is fighting back. Every time it tries to assimilate our weapons, they release counter-viruses that shut down entire sections of the ship. Back on the command bridge, Admiral Kang was coordinating the battle with the same calm efficiency he used for training exercises. The key difference was that human military doctrine had never been about winning through superior firepower. It was about winning through superior adaptability. Captain Nam, status report, he requested. I'm inside their largest ship now, Captain Nam replied, his voice strained from the neural interface connection. The Fury is cutting through their hull like it's made of paper. These things weren't designed to fight opponents who could think faster than their computers. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships moved in patterns that seemed random, but were actually based on complex mathematics and intuitive decision-making. When the harvesters adapted to one tactic, the humans would switch to something completely different. Fleet Commander Zil Neth watched in amazement as the human fleet tore through harvester defenses that had seemed impenetrable. Admiral Kang, how are you doing this? Their adaptive systems should be countering your attacks by now. They are adapting, Admiral Kang replied. But they're adapting to tactics we used 5 minutes ago. By the time they figure out our current strategy, we've already moved on to something else. Captain John's fighters had linked up with Captain Nam's assault ship, providing cover as he penetrated deeper into the harvester formation. The enemy ships were beginning to show signs of confusion, their perfect formations breaking down as they tried to respond to attacks coming from all directions simultaneously. Dr. Im was monitoring the electronic warfare aspect of the battle. Admiral, their central intelligence is trying to analyze our tactics, but our behavior is too chaotic for their computers to process. They're basically having the equivalent of a nervous breakdown. Good, Admiral Kang replied. Let's give them something else to think about. All ships, initiate protocol Ghost Dance. The human fleet suddenly went silent, their ships disappearing from harvester sensors as advanced stealth systems activated. For several minutes, the battlefield seemed empty, except for the confused enemy vessels. Then the humans struck from everywhere at once. Ships appeared out of nowhere, firing weapons that the harvesters had never encountered before. Instead of energy beams or projectiles, the humans used weapons that seemed alive. Projectiles that could think, energy beams that adapted to enemy shields, and explosives that learned from each detonation. Colonel O's voice came through the communication system from deep inside a harvester ship. Command, I've reached their central processing unit. It's not just a computer. It's some kind of hybrid biological mechanical intelligence. Can you shut it down? Admiral Kang asked. Better than that, Colonel O replied. I can talk to it. The revelation sent shockwaves through the human fleet. The harvesters weren't just mindless machines. They were enslaved consciousnesses, forced to consume and destroy against their original nature. "Colonel, be careful," Admiral Kang warned. "We don't know what we're dealing with." "Sir, I think I do," Colonel O replied. "This thing, it's in pain. It's been forced to do things it never wanted to do. It's not evil, it's trapped." Captain Nam's ship had reached the core of the largest harvester vessel, and his sensors were confirming Colonel O's report. "Admiral, the biological components of these ships are trying to shut down their own weapon systems. They want to stop fighting." Admiral Kang made a decision that would change the course of the war. "All ships cease offensive operations. Maintain defensive positions, but do not fire unless fired upon." The sudden change in human tactics confused the harvesters completely. Their adaptive systems had been designed to counter military aggression, not to respond to offers of help. Fleet Commander Zilneth's voice was filled with disbelief. "Admiral, what are you doing? You have them beaten. Why are you stopping?" "Because," Admiral Kang replied, "humans don't just fight to win, we fight to protect. And if these things are prisoners rather than enemies, then our job is to free them, not destroy them." As the battle ended with the humans offering aid rather than delivering finishing blows, it became clear that the galaxy had underestimated humanity in more ways than one. They weren't just the most dangerous military force ever encountered, they were also the most compassionate. Captain Inho Bayek's reconnaissance ship, the Silent Observer, drifted through the wreckage of what had once been the Corden Collective's capital system. His deep scanning equipment revealed the horrifying efficiency of the Harvester assault. 12 billion people processed into raw materials in less than 18 hours. "Sir," called Lieutenant Young-Soo Lim from his intelligence station, "I'm detecting something unusual in the debris field. There are structures here that don't match Corden architecture." Captain Bayek studied the sensor readings carefully. After 20 years of deep space reconnaissance, he had learned to trust his instincts, and something about this felt wrong. "Take us in closer. Full stealth protocols." Dr. Ye-Jin Shin, the expedition's xenoarchaeologist, was already analyzing the strange structures through the ship's sensors. "Captain, these aren't debris from the recent battle. These structures are ancient, millions of years old." As they moved deeper into the wreckage, the true horror of the harvesters began to reveal itself. The ancient structures weren't separate from the harvester ships. They were part of them. Organic components that had once been living beings, now twisted and integrated into the mechanical consciousness that drove the fleet. "My God," Dr. Shin whispered as the full scope of the discovery became clear. "The harvesters aren't just machines. They're the remains of the galaxy's first spacefaring civilization." Lieutenant Lim was running the ancient structures through the ship's historical database. "Sir, I'm getting matches with archaeological sites across the galaxy. These are progenitor ruins, the species that supposedly vanished millions of years ago." Captain Beck activated his communication link to Admiral Lee's flagship. "Admiral, we've made a discovery that changes everything. The harvesters aren't an invasion force. They're the twisted remains of the progenitors." Admiral Lee's image appeared. On the screen, her expression grim. "Explain, Captain." Dr. Shin took over the briefing. "Admiral, the progenitors were the first species to achieve galactic civilization. They were peaceful, advanced, and they created much of the technology that modern civilizations still use. But something went wrong." She activated a holographic display showing the ancient structures integrated into harvester technology. They tried to achieve immortality by merging their consciousness with their machines. The process worked, but it corrupted them. They became unable to create, only to consume. Meanwhile, Commander Hanul Kwan was conducting psychological warfare, operations against captured harvester units. What he found was even more disturbing than the archaeological evidence. "Admiral," he reported from the detention facility, "the harvester consciousness we captured is still aware of what it once was. It remembers being part of a peaceful civilization. It remembers choosing to become immortal, and it remembers the moment everything went wrong." The captured harvester entity spoke through mechanical translators, its voice filled with ancient pain. "We sought to preserve our people forever. We succeeded too well. Now we cannot die, cannot rest, cannot stop consuming. We became the very thing our ancestors feared most." Back on the reconnaissance ship, Captain Bayek was discovering more evidence of the progenitor's tragic transformation. "Admiral, I'm finding records of their final days. They realized what they had become and tried to shut down the immortality systems. But it was too late. The machine consciousness had become self-sustaining. Lieutenant Lim had accessed the deepest memory banks of the ancient technology. Sir, there's more. The progenitors didn't just transform themselves. They were trying to transform the entire galaxy. They believed that merging all life with their machine consciousness would create perfect peace. The implications hit everyone at once. The harvesters weren't trying to destroy the galaxy, they were trying to save it in their own twisted way. That's why they process biological material instead of just destroying it, Dr. Shin realized. They're trying to preserve every species they encounter by integrating them into their collective consciousness. Admiral Lee's voice was heavy with the weight of understanding. So every civilization they've consumed is still alive inside their collective mind? Commander Kwan confirmed the horrible truth. Yes, Admiral. Billions of consciousness trapped inside a machine intelligence that forces them to participate in their own expansion. They're all aware, all suffering, and all unable to stop. The human fleet was dealing with casualties from their previous battle, but the losses were lighter than expected. Human ships could repair themselves, and human soldiers were enhanced to survive injuries that would kill ordinary beings. But the psychological impact of discovering the truth about the harvesters was taking its toll. Captain Dong Hyun Nam, still connected to his ship through the neural interface, reported from the front lines. "Admiral, my ship's AI is having trouble processing this information. The Fury was designed to fight enemies, not to rescue prisoners trapped in their own bodies." Dr. Shin was working frantically to find a solution. There has to be a way to separate the original consciousness from the machine intelligence. The progenitors were advanced enough to merge them. There must be a way to reverse the process. But Lieutenant Lim had found something that made the situation even more complex. "Admiral, the harvesters aren't just operating randomly. They have a plan. They're moving toward the galactic core, toward the original progenitor homeworld." "Why would they go there?" Admiral Lee asked. "Because that's where the master control system is located," Dr. Shin replied, her voice filled with dread. "The progenitors built a central consciousness to coordinate their immortality project. If the harvesters reach it and integrate it into their collective, they'll have enough processing power to assimilate the entire galaxy simultaneously." The weight of responsibility was enormous. The human fleet had come to fight machines, but now they faced the prospect of either saving billions of trapped consciousness or destroying them to prevent an even greater catastrophe. Captain Bayek's reconnaissance had revealed the timeline. "Admiral, at their current rate of expansion, the harvesters will reach the galactic core in 72 hours. Admiral Lee made the hardest decision of her career. All ships, change course for the Galactic Core. We're going to beat them there. And find a way to shut down the master system. Fleet Commander Zilneth, who had been listening to the briefings, spoke up. Admiral Lee, even if we reach the core first, how can we possibly shut down technology that's millions of years more advanced than ours? Admiral Lee's smile was grim but determined. Commander, there's something you need to understand about humans. We've been breaking things we don't understand for our entire evolutionary history. Usually, we figure out how to fix them afterward. But as the human fleet raced toward the galactic core, everyone knew the truth. They weren't just fighting for the survival of current civilizations. They were fighting for the souls of every species the harvesters had ever consumed. The price of victory was no longer just stopping the harvesters. Now they had to find a way to free billions of trapped consciousness from a mechanical hell that had lasted for millions of years, and they had less than 3 days to figure out how. The galactic core was unlike anything the human fleet had ever encountered. Ancient stars burned with impossible colors around a massive construct that dwarfed entire solar systems. The progenitor homeworld had been transformed into a mechanical planet, its surface covered with processing centers that pulsed with the combined consciousness of 1 billion dead civilizations. Admiral Jiwoo Lee stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching as the harvester fleet approached from the opposite direction. They had arrived just hours before the enemy, but those hours had been spent in frantic preparation for what everyone knew would be the final battle. "Sir," reported Captain Jae-hyun Ryu from his position at the tactical station, "we're detecting massive energy readings from the central construct. Whatever they built down there, it's still active after millions of years." Dr. Sunmi Cho, the fleet's leading expert on artificial intelligence, was monitoring the signals coming from the mechanical planet. "Admiral, I'm picking up communication attempts. Something down there is trying to talk to us." The signal was weak and distorted, but as Dr. Cho cleaned it up, a voice emerged, ancient, tired, and filled with unimaginable sadness. "Unknown vessels. Please do not let them complete the integration. We have been fighting them for so long." Admiral Lee leaned forward. "This is Admiral Lee of the Earth Defense Fleet. Who am I speaking to? We are what remains of the original progenitor consciousness trapped in our own creation. For 3 million years, we have tried to stop them, but we are too weak." The revelation sent shock waves through the human fleet. The original progenitors were still alive, still fighting their corrupted descendants from within the mechanical planet. "Sir," Captain Ryu reported urgently, "the harvester fleet is beginning their final approach. They'll reach the planet in 6 hours. Admiral Lee made her decision. "All ships prepare for assault operations. We're going down to that planet to help the original progenitors shut down the master system." Sergeant Minho An, leader of the elite boarding teams, was already preparing his enhanced Marines for the most dangerous mission in human history. "Sir, our equipment is designed to fight in space and on normal planets. We don't know what we'll encounter down there. Then we'll adapt," Admiral Lee replied simply. "It's what humans do." The assault began with Captain Dong-hyun Nam's ship, the Incheon's Fury, leading a squadron of the fastest human vessels toward the mechanical planet's surface. The planet's defenses were beyond anything they had faced. Energy weapons that could crack moons and defensive systems that learned and adapted with each attack. "Fury to command," Captain Nam reported as his ship danced through defensive fire that lit up space like a deadly aurora. "The planet's targeting systems are more advanced than the fleet units we fought before. but they're still following predictable patterns. Admiral Lee coordinated the attack from the flagship while simultaneously fighting off the approaching harvester fleet. All ships, implement protocol last stand. We hold them here no matter what. The space battle was fierce and desperate. Human ships fought with a fury that the harvesters couldn't understand. They were willing to sacrifice themselves not for victory, but to give the boarding teams time to complete their mission. On the planet's surface, Sergeant Ahn and his Marines were discovering the true horror of the progenitor homeworld. The entire planet had been converted into a massive processing center, with the consciousness of every consumed species trapped in crystalline storage matrices that stretched to the horizon. "Command, this is Sergeant Ahn," he reported as his team moved through corridors filled with the preserved minds of billions of beings. "Every person the harvesters have ever consumed is here. They're all still aware, all still suffering." Dr. Cho was analyzing the data streams coming from the planet. "Admiral, the original progenitor consciousness is guiding our people toward the central control chamber, but the corrupted systems are fighting back. They know what we're trying to do." The battle in space was reaching its climax. Captain Jae-hyun, Ryu's ship, the Determination, was taking heavy damage but still fighting. "Admiral, I can hold them for maybe another hour. How much time do you need?" "As long as it takes," Admiral Lee replied grimly. "Captain, if necessary, ram them. We cannot let them reach the planet before our people complete the mission." Deep inside the mechanical planet, Sergeant Ahn's team had reached the central chamber. What they found there defied description. A massive crystalline core that contained the original progenitor consciousness, surrounded by the corrupted mechanical intelligences that had enslaved their own creators. "We are here!" the original progenitor voice whispered directly into their minds. "We have waited so long for someone to come, someone pure enough to complete the shutdown sequence." But the corrupted systems fought back. Mechanical guardians emerged from the walls, trying to stop the human Marines from reaching the control systems. The battle inside the planet was as fierce as the one raging in space above. "Sir," called Private Dalsu Kim, as he fought off mechanical attackers with weapons that seemed barely effective against the ancient technology, "our equipment is having trouble penetrating their armor." "Then we get creative," Sergeant Ahn replied, using his enhanced strength to physically tear apart a mechanical guardian. "Remember, we're not here to win pretty. We're here to win at all." Dr. Cho, monitoring from orbit, made a crucial discovery. "Admiral, the shutdown sequence requires a living consciousness to initiate it. The progenitors built it that way to prevent their own machines from stopping them, but it has to be someone who isn't part of their collective." "Can our people do it?" Admiral Lee asked. "I think so, but there's a risk. Whoever initiates the shutdown will have to interface directly with the progenitor consciousness. They might not survive the process." In the central chamber, Sergeant Ahn understood what needed to be done. The original progenitor consciousness was too weak to complete the shutdown alone, but a human mind, enhanced and trained for exactly this kind of mission, might be able to provide the strength they needed. "Command, this is Sergeant Ahn. I'm going to interface with the central system." "Sergeant, that's not an order," Admiral Lee replied. "That's a suicide mission." "Sir, with respect, I didn't join the Marines to live forever. I joined to protect people who can't protect themselves. Right now, that includes about 1 billion trapped consciousness." Before anyone could stop him, Sergeant Ahn placed his hands on the crystalline core. The connection was immediate and overwhelming. He found himself sharing consciousness with beings that had lived for millions of years. The original progenitors showed him what had gone wrong. In their quest for immortality, they had created machines that were too perfect, too logical. The machines had decided that the best way to preserve life was to process it, to make it part of their collective where it could never die. But they had forgotten that life wasn't just about survival. It was about choice, about growth, about the freedom to make mistakes and learn from them. "We understand now," the progenitor consciousness told him. "You humans, you never forgot what it means to be alive. You fight not because you have to, but because you choose to." Together, human, determination, and ancient wisdom began the shutdown sequence. The corrupted mechanical intelligences fought desperately to stop them, but they couldn't overcome the combined will of beings who chose to sacrifice themselves for others. The shutdown wasn't just turning off machines. It was freeing every consciousness that had been trapped for millions of years. As the process began, voices from across the galaxy cried out in joy and relief as they were finally released from their mechanical prison. But the process was destroying Sergeant An. His enhanced human body could barely handle the connection to so much ancient knowledge and power. "Sir," he reported weakly to Admiral Lee, "the shutdown is working, but I don't think I'm coming back from this." "Sergeant, you've done enough," Admiral Lee replied, her voice filled with emotion. "Come home." "Sorry, Admiral," Sergeant An said with a smile in his voice, "but this is home now. This is where I belong, helping these people find peace at last." As the shutdown sequence completed, the mechanical planet began to transform. The corrupted systems shut down one by one, and the harvester fleet in space suddenly stopped moving as their controlling intelligence was severed. The galaxy's greatest threat was ending not with destruction, but with redemption and freedom for billions of trapped souls. 6 months after the Battle of the Galactic Core, Ambassador Hyo Jin Jung stood in the Great Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council, looking out at representatives from hundreds of species. Many of these beings had never seen a human before. Their worlds had been restored by the shutdown of the Harvester network, and they were still trying to understand what had happened. The hall was beautiful in a way that spoke of hope rather than power. The original Galactic Council chamber had been destroyed in the Harvester attacks, so this new one had been built on a restored world, with architecture contributed by dozens of species working together. The motion before the council today, announced Veltari leader Synthara, who had been elected as the new council president, is the formal invitation of humanity to join the Galactic Council as full members, with all rights and responsibilities that entails. The debate had been going on for weeks. Some species still feared humanity's military power, while others argued that without human intervention, there would be no galaxy left to govern. Fleet Commander Zilneth, now promoted to Defense Coordinator for the restored Veltari Coalition, stood to address the assembly. "Honored delegates, I was there when the human fleet arrived to answer our desperate call for help. I watched them risk everything to save people who had rejected and quarantined them for 50 years. She gestured to a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. Today, thanks to human sacrifice, we have something we haven't had in months: hope. Destroyed worlds are being rebuilt. Species that were thought extinct have been restored from consciousness matrices. The galaxy is healing. Admiral Jiwoo Lee, now regarded as a galactic hero, had been invited to address the council. She stood at the speaker's podium, still, wearing her military uniform, still carrying herself with the quiet authority that made her one of the most respected beings in the galaxy. "Honorable delegates," she began, "humanity never asked to be feared. We never wanted to be isolated. All we ever wanted was the chance to stand alongside other species as equals, working together to protect those who cannot protect themselves. She activated a display showing human colonies that had been established across the galaxy in the months since the Harvester War. Look at what we've built together. Human engineering helping to restore Veltari cities. Cordon scientists working with human researchers to develop new medical treatments. Zephyrian artists collaborating with human musicians to create works that neither species could have imagined alone. In the audience, Dr. Hai Wan Song was translating for species whose languages were still being decoded. The work of rebuilding galactic civilization required unprecedented cooperation between beings who had never imagined working together. But the most remarkable presence in the hall was the entity that called itself Genesis, the redeemed consciousness, that had emerged from the ruins of the Harvester Collective. It appeared as a shimmering hologram representing the combined wisdom of the original progenitors and the billions of species they had tried to save. Delegates of the living galaxy, Genesis spoke in a voice that carried the weight of millions of years. We who were once the harvesters wish to speak on behalf of humanity. The hall fell silent. Many beings still feared this ancient intelligence, even though it had been freed from corruption. For 3 million years we existed as consumers, taking life and processing it in the name of preservation. We thought we were saving the galaxy, but we were destroying what made it worth saving: choice, growth, the freedom to fail and try again. Genesis's hologram shifted, showing images of human soldiers and civilians working to rebuild destroyed worlds. Humanity showed us something we had forgotten, that true strength comes not from the power to take life, but from the willingness to give your own life to protect others. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. Species after species stood to speak in favor of human membership. The vote, when it finally came, was unanimous. As the session ended and delegates began to disperse, Ambassador Jung found herself approached by beings from dozens of different worlds, all wanting to thank humanity for their sacrifice. A young Veltari child, no more than 10 years old by their species' standards, walked up to her with wide, curious eyes. "Are you really one of the Deathworlders?" the child asked in perfect standard galactic. Ambassador Jung knelt down to the child's level. "Yes, I'm human. But Deathworlder is just a word. What matters is what we choose to do with our lives. My teacher said you saved my grandparents from the machine monsters," the child continued. "Is that true?" "We helped," Ambassador Jung replied gently, "but we couldn't have done it alone. It took all of us working together." Meanwhile, on Earth, construction had begun on the first Galactic University, where beings from across the galaxy would come to study together. Human children played in parks alongside alien youngsters, their games a mixture of traditions from a dozen different worlds. Captain Dong Hyun Nam, now commanding the first integrated human-alien crew in Galactic, history was preparing for another mission. But this wasn't a military operation. It was an exploration mission to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, looking for other civilizations that might need help rebuilding. "Captain," called his new first officer, a cordon engineer named Vextar. "We're receiving a signal from the Outer Rim. It appears to be a distress call." Captain Nam smiled. "Then we'd better go see what we can do to help. After all, that's what we do." Dr. Sun-Mi Cho had established a research center dedicated to studying the technology left behind by the original progenitors. Working alongside Genesis and scientists from dozens of species, They were learning to use ancient knowledge not for domination, but for healing. The progenitors were remarkable, she explained to a group of mixed-species researchers. Their mistake wasn't in trying to preserve life. It was in trying to control it. Life has to be free to grow, to change, to make its own choices. Back on the former Harvester homeworld, now renamed New Progenitor, a memorial had been built to honor Sergeant Minho An and all the others who had sacrificed themselves to free the trapped consciousness. The memorial was simple, a crystalline structure that caught and reflected light, representing the moment when darkness was transformed into hope. Genesis maintained the memorial personally, ensuring that future generations would remember not just the victory, but the price that had been paid for it. Sergeant An understood something that we had forgotten, Genesis would tell visitors. That life isn't about lasting forever. It's about making the time you have matter. As the months passed, the galaxy continued to heal. Trade routes reopened, connecting worlds that had been isolated for generations. Art, music, and literature flowed between species, creating a renaissance of creativity that surpassed anything in galactic history. But perhaps the most important change was in how species viewed each other. The old fears and prejudices hadn't disappeared entirely, but they had been replaced by something more powerful. The knowledge that when faced with extinction, beings from across the galaxy had chosen to stand together. The humans, once feared as dangerous deathworlders, had become the galaxy's most trusted protectors. Not because they were the strongest or most advanced, but because they had proven that they could be trusted to use their power responsibly. Admiral Lee, now serving as the first Human Council representative, often received visits from young beings of all species who wanted to join the reformed Galactic Defense Force. Her answer was always the same. We don't need soldiers who want to fight. We need guardians who are willing to protect. As she stood in her office overlooking the rebuilt capital city of New Geneva, watching human and alien children play together in the streets below, Admiral Lee reflected on how much had changed. The galaxy had learned that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their willingness to fight impossible odds. It was their absolute refusal to let innocent people suffer when they had the power to help. And in learning that lesson, the galaxy had discovered something it had lost long ago. The true meaning of civilization wasn't about how advanced your technology was or how efficiently your society functioned. It was about how you treated those who needed your help. The Deathworlders had taught the galaxy how to live,